I understand that when you're dependent on someone, it's harder to reject abuse by that person or by those people. If you have a job that you rely on to pay for basic expenses and you don't have other jobs readily available, you're more likely to accept some misconduct by that employer because you can't just walk away, right? So I get that 100%. You know, Similar scenario is, you're living in someone's house because you can't afford to live in your own house, right? Or you're living on someone's land, um, again, because you can't afford your own. And so you can't so readily, it seems, it's more difficult to object, right? Because you don't want to get into a precarious situation, right? So a current example, this is the 29th of June, 2021, and an article just came out today talking about workers at an auto manufacturing plant, and the news was saying how they were complaining, the employees were, about having to wear masks. It was very uncomfortable, um, you know, obviously restricting their breathing, and when they're doing work that can be physically taxing, right? It's just obviously not a good combination. And so the corporation said, okay, well, now for those that are fully vaccinated, you can take off the masks, right? And along with this uh, new rule, there's going to be these new protocols where regular health assessments are going to be necessary. So you're going to have to be tested by your employer, and if their test says you have something, then they also get to tell you what is the correct medicine or treatment for whatever it is that their test said you have, you know, and that test could be accurate or inaccurate, and that treatment could be effective, ineffective, or harmful. This is no minor thing whatsoever. This is a major infringement on personal freedom. Of course, they're saying it's in the name of safety, but you're letting yourself become, I hesitate to use the term guinea pig because I'm very much against animal testing, but just because it's something to be readily understood right now, you're letting yourself become a guinea pig of politicians and their pharmaceutical partners. They can just keep testing you, and if their tests say you have something that they say you need to get treatment for, and then they can designate whatever that treatment is, like you're literally letting yourself become the livestock of other people. It's just insane that people would just, out of appealed desperation, go along with this and say, well, if I don't do it, they're going to fire me. There comes a point where you got to say, I'm not going to just let them do whatever they want to my body. I'm not just their slave. I'm not their livestock. I'm not going to potentially injure myself or even be killed by whatever treatment that they say is mandatory. Right? This is just in no way acceptable. Any sane person should not for 1 second consider this as legitimate. And if you think it's like going back to normal by accepting never ending injections of who knows what, you know, and then, okay, you can take the mask off, but that's not back to normal. Yeah, you don't have the mask on your face, but you have who knows what now inside your body. They're being more invasive. It's not letting up, they're increasing, you know, and this is just the way control freaks operate, you know, ever tightening circles of control, you know. They test how much they can get away with. And in large degree, again, what they can get away with is dependent on how much people are dependent on them, right? Because if you didn't need that job and they started mandating, you know, all of these things for you, putting things on your body and putting things in your body, you could just say, hell no, I'm not, you're not my master, you're not my doctor that I can't say no to, you know, this is ridiculous, I'm out of here, right? So it's abuse of control, right? Especially when the reason why you're dependent on them in the first place is also due to abuse, right? It's due to the fact that you've been made dependent unjustly, right? Why do you need a corporate job just to live on the planet Earth, right? What you actually need is food, clothing, and shelter. And the earth provides all of that, right? You need land, water, and seeds, right? Seeds to grow the food, grow the trees, grow the industrial hemp, etc., that you then use for building materials, you know, build your house, build your garden, grow your vegetables, grow your fruit and nut trees, right? All of that is pre-existing in nature. It's not produced by a corporation or by a government, right? I'd say it was created by God, but whether you believe in God or not, you'd have to agree it's pre-existing, not created by these systems which make us dependent on them by saying we have to pay just to live on the planet, right? You have to pay for a little piece of land, you have to pay for a little amount of water, and you have to pay property tax, right? Income tax, like all, you know, like all the rest. You have to get your insurance on this and that, right? You need to get your building inspected and pay for permits. All these forms of invasive control, which make you a money slave, which makes you dependent on them, which makes you dependent on, you know, earning money, working for corporations. And if you think, oh, just being an entrepreneur is the solution, that's, you know, that's not necessarily the case. And likewise, you're still being extorted whether you're an entrepreneur or not, right? And these medical mandates, right, they're just going to keep closing in, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe you don't work at a factory where they got these mandates, but they're just going to keep closing in, right? Well, then you try and go travel somewhere. You want to go visit some family or go on a vacation, and they then at the airport say, "Oh, where's your certification of, you know, getting all these injections," right? So these are abusive control freaks who are pushing medical tyranny, and to let this become the new normal is just horrible. To pass this on to the next generation is just despicable, really, for people to go along with it. To not see it as a form of abuse, to not see this as evil, to not see this as extremely dangerous. You know, they keep saying it's in the name of safety, but what could be more dangerous than letting the least trustworthy people on the planet inject whatever they want into you for the rest of your life and for the rest of your children's lives, right? And give them the power that whatever their tests say, you know, result in whatever consequence they come up with, right? Including, you know, imprisonment, quarantine, right? It's just crazy that you would assume that these people are angelic, that they're never mistaken, never deceptive. They aren't doing this for selfish reasons. They're not at all control freaks. They're not at all abusive. It's all just for safety, just like they say it is. At what point are you going to realize that if you're not free, you're not safe, right? If they're abusing you, endangering your life and endangering the lives of your children, you're not safe. They might keep telling you you're safe from some so-called virus, but really, you've just been put in a position of less safety because you've had your fundamental freedoms taken away. You've become more of a slave. Even if you're a healthy slave, that's not safe. There's no such thing as a safe slave, right? You need freedom from abuse in order to be safe. It's not just about health. They're hoodwinking everyone by just making them think that if they can convince everyone that, they're keeping you healthy, never mind the tens of thousands of injuries from these treatments and deaths, those numbers, of course, are being suppressed. But I've definitely heard about more people being injured or killed from the treatment more than people that I've known have died from the so-called virus. I know that's just my subjective perspective, but I know many other people have the same view. So, it's just insanity on top of insanity. And I hope more people realize that, just earning a paycheck, but becoming livestock isn't really worth doing. It might actually be it'd be better to be homeless, but more free than a slave that's, able to pay the utility bills. I'll link to my previous talk on the idea of give me liberty or give me death, live free or die. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees, right? Talking about the question of at what point does loss of freedom make life not worth living? Right? It's a question that you should ask yourself. All right, thank you for listening.